Hello there and welcome. This is Mikhail or Michael speaking. As always, I want to thank you all who decided to support me financially, be it on Patreon, through PayPal, or Super Thanks. Thank you and have a blessed day. In this video today, I want to do a quick recap of what happened in the last 48 hours. So we will start with Bakhmut. First of all, here we have a Samolyot district. For a long time, Russians were fighting with Ukrainians for the control over the Chaikovskого Street here, and they were doing it attacking from Karsonskova Street here. There was a lot of back and forth going on here within this sector, with both Russians and Ukrainians constantly harassing and counter-attacking each other in the middle of those two streets. And as a result of those fierce fighting, Russians were able to capture significant amounts of territory from Ukrainian forces, and this is how much they were able to capture in the last 48 hours. So as you can see, it's a quite significant territory. For about a month, the front line hadn't changed much in this sector, and finally, there are some changes. As you can see, there is a bridgehead developing, or a pocket. And here, Ukrainian control only small patch of this street. That proves their vulnerability here in this sector, as they are now subjects of attacking from both fronts and flanks. Not to say that Russians can advance within Chaikovskого Street and attack from the rear. I'm sure soon this sector will fall, of course, if Ukrainians will not counter-attack here in this sector. However, latest reports suggests that not only Wagner troops were able to establish footholds here, they were able to withhold Ukrainian counterattacks and advance further beyond their newly acquired positions. Then we have so-called citadel area or high-rise buildings. Here Russians were able to breach Ukrainian defenses in two places. First one is right here. They were able to capture these two high-rise buildings, advancing along Vulitsa Yubileyная here and fighting within this area as well. They were also able to advance along the Livanevskого Street and captured this much territory with few high-rise buildings within it. If you remember, Russians were heavily bombarding this sector, especially somewhere in this area. They were dropping FAB 500 bombs, destroying Ukrainian positions. We can see that they are developing an attack along these two main streets. With that, we might see this entire sector fall. How fast exactly, I'm not sure. But this is being a main focus of Russian attack as of right now. The attempts to breach Ukrainian positions all along this sector continues, so I'm sure there is heavy fighting happening within this sector as we speak. There is a bit of an old but interesting video of Bakhmut that is entirely covered by smoke. There is no indication that the heavy bombardments of this sector continued, as again Russians are storming it from two directions. So as you can see, due to a massive smoke, it is almost impossible to tell where exactly this shot is taking place. Now, I would assume that the high-rise buildings in the back could be an indication of a so-called citadel area. However, again, smoke covers the entire city, as you can see. Very hard to tell where exactly is this taking place. Fighting also is happening here towards Kharmovo village and around 00506 highway, as Russians are continuously attacking in attempt to capture, physically cut, and advance further from this road. It is being confirmed that Russians were able to advance even further within the trench line system that is located to this side of the road, and were able to capture about this much land. Now, this small patch of fields is riddled with trench lines, So perhaps Russians are here to stay for a long time. But overall, there is again a lot of back and forth happening, and this recent Russian capture was part of that back and forth. Then of course we have situation to the south of Bakhmut. As you can see here, recently Ukrainians had launched successful counterattack and were able to capture about this much territory from the Russian forces. Unfortunately for me, I had to sit through a lot of pro-Ukrainian sources to understand what's really happening. From what I can tell, they already saying that Bakhmut is on the verge of collapse. The entire front line for Bakhmut is on the verge of collapse. That as a result of this attack, Ukrainians were able to destroy one brigade of Russian army. Didn't find anything of that. All I saw is a video of perhaps 15 to 20 men running away from a Ukrainian tank. That is it. From what I figured, it's basically a reconnaissance by combat. The only place where they were able to advance is here. It is being reported that they tried to harass Russian defensive lines here near Ivanivsky, as well as here towards general direction of Klishivka. And they also recently started attacking towards Kurdyumovka and Azarnikivka. But once again, only here Ukrainians saw relative success. And why relative? Because although they were able to clear this territory from Russian soldiers to the west of the canal, they were unable to advance further, indicating that perhaps Russian positions here along these forest lines were secondary, and they have run into primary Russian defenses. Not to say that if they were to break through here as well, they would force to fight near and at Klishivka, which is, as far as I know, heavily fortified by the Russians. Ukrainian sources, however, are claiming that this is extremely successful attack, and that they are developing attacks here in this sector, and soon Russians will be forced to retreat from this sector right here. Then, of course, they already attacking of a successful attack towards Klishivka and its imminent capture, and a flank maneuver towards Bakhmut. Some say even about possible encirclement, but there's no pincer movement that is happening here to the north of Bakhmut. The only action that is happening is to the south, but once again situation for Russians had stabilized, and nowhere else but here Ukrainians were able to take any significant land from the Russians. Again, I strongly believe this is part of a reconnaissance by combat. I'm sure Ukrainians were not expecting this defensive line to fall so fast. If we remember correctly, same thing was happening here near Stupachki, where Russians had some territories and advancing here along these forest lines, but were counter-attacked and just retreated behind the canal, and nothing really happened of that. I'm sure same will happen here. Perhaps in a few days we might see Ukrainians successfully counter-attack and take maybe this sector right here. As we can see, Russians had extended their zone of control here, and Ukrainians of course could counterattack here in this sector. But once again, I'm sure there are secondary defensive lines here to the other side of canal, and to the east side of the canal Russians have a stronger defensive positions, not to say heavily fortified settlements that would not allow Ukrainians to advance within this sector freely. Then we have situation in Belogorovka. Here it is being reported that Russians have successfully advanced and captured the plant here. This is more remarkable due to the fact that here in this sector there is a Chechen forces fighting. It's called Akhmat North. So this indicates that Russians are advancing within the entire front line, just in a very slow pace. Then we will quickly jump to Avdiivka. Now, of course, Kamyanka have fallen some time ago, but there's a video of Russian war journalists walking around it. Not only this indicates that the capture and clearing of the village is over, it also indicates that perhaps Kamyanka is already in the deep rear of the Russian forces. So I assume we might see more changes here on this front. Perhaps Russian front line moving somewhere here. Because if, for example, Ukrainian front line is here, then whoever was walking in this village would be under Ukrainian fire. That did not happen, so at least Ukrainians are not fire controlling the village, that's for sure. Now, I quickly want to touch on the possible Ukrainian counteroffensive. Prigozhin is giving a very weird signals. He is reporting that no ammo was delivered to him. However, Wagnerites are gaining significant land here within Bakhmut. He's also saying that Ukrainian counteroffensive had begun and Ukrainians are having success here on the flanks, Again, reality doesn't really indicate that. With difficulties, but Russians are holding Ukrainians all along the front line. Of course, this situation can change, but as of right now, Russian flanks are covered. This probing attacks could be an indication of a fake attack to make Russians believe that this is where the counteroffensive will begin. Somewhat of a similar situation happened in Kherson, where Ukrainians had counterattacked Russians here in this sector, capturing some land, making Russians believe that this is where their counteroffensive will be. Thus, Russians had started moving their troops away from other fronts to Kherson, and after that Ukrainians have counterattacked here around Kharkiv. And I kind of see the same situation could happen here, with Ukrainians faking a secondary counteroffensive here and making their main one somewhere in Zaporozhye or even Donetsk region, who knows, in and around Ugledar. Anyway, tell me what you think about this in the comment section. I would like to know your point of view. Also, tell me about a Ukrainian success here to the south of Bakhmut, because pro-Ukrainian sources are making big deal out of it, as if this could end the entire battle for Bakhmut in Ukrainian favor. I don't believe in it. I think there is a strong cope within pro-Ukrainian side, but then again, I could be wrong, as all of us can at some point. So yeah, this is the end of the video. I hope you liked it. If you did, please consider supporting it with a like, comment, subscription, and of course, pushing that notification bell. All those actions helps promote my video to a wider audience and helps to spread the message. If you feel extra generous, please consider supporting me on Patreon. Humanity, as always, calls me to condemn all violence against human beings. Have a good day, and always remember, Russia will be free.